I'd been living next to Harold for 3 years, and in all that time, we'd barely exchanged more than polite nods. He was the kind of neighbor who kept to himself, always in his garden at dawn, quietly tending to his roses, never making eye contact for longer than necessary. I'd pegged him as the grumpy old man type, the kind who'd complain about music being too loud or kids playing too close to his fence. Boy, was I wrong. I'd started on the worst Tuesday of my life. I'd just gotten the call that my mom was in the hospital 2 states away, and I was frantically throwing clothes into a suitcase when I realized my car wouldn't start. The engine made that horrible grinding sound. That means your savings account is about to take a hit. I stood there in my driveway, keys dangling uselessly in my hand, watching precious minutes tick by while my mom lay in a hospital bed 300 miles away. That's when I heard footsteps on gravel. Car trouble? Harold's voice was gravelly but not unkind. I turned, probably looking as frazzled as I felt. It won't start, and I need to get to Indianapolis. My mom. My voice caught. Harold didn't ask for details. He simply said, "Get your bag. I'll drive you." I blinked. What? Indianapolis. I know the way. My truck's reliable. He was already walking toward his garage. Harold, that's a 6-hour round trip. I can't ask you to. You didn't ask. I offered. The garage door rumbled open, revealing an immaculately maintained blue pickup truck. Besides, I've got nothing but time these days. The drive started in comfortable silence. Harold drove steadily, competently, while I fidgeted with my phone and tried not to imagine the worst. About an hour in, he spoke up. "Lost my wife 2 years ago," he said quietly, eyes fixed on the road. "Cancer. Spend a lot of time driving to hospitals those last months." I didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry." He nodded. "Point is, I know what it's like, the helpless feeling. Sometimes the best thing someone can do is just show up." We talked sporadically during the rest of the drive. I learned that Harold had been a mechanic for 40 years, that he'd restored the truck himself, that he grew roses because his late wife Margaret had loved them. He learned that I was a teacher, that I'd moved here after my divorce, that I was scared of being alone when my mom inevitably got older. When we reached the hospital, Harold insisted on waiting. "I'll be right here," he said, settling into the driver's seat with a thermos of coffee and a worn paperback novel. Mom was stable, a mild heart episode, scary but treatable. I spent 4 hours with her, holding her hand and listening to doctors explain medications and lifestyle changes. When I finally emerged, exhausted and emotionally drained, Harold was exactly where he'd promised to be. "How is she?" he asked. "She's going to be okay." I felt tears coming and tried to blink them back. Harold handed me a tissue from his glove compartment. "That's good news. You ready to head back? Or do you need more time? We can go." "Thank you, Harold. I mean it." I struggled for words. "What neighbors do," he said simply, starting the engine. On the drive home, we stopped at a diner Harold knew. Over coffee and pie, he told me more about Margaret, about how they'd never had children, but had loved each other fiercely for 37 years. I told him about my divorce, about starting over in a new town where I knew no one. "You know me now," he said, and I realized I did. We got back to our street at nearly midnight. I thanked Harold again, profusely, and promised to pay for gas and food, but he waved me off. "Just promise me something," he said, as I gathered my things. "Anything. Next time you need help, don't hesitate to ask. And maybe," he paused, looking suddenly shy, "maybe sometimes you could ask even when you don't need help." Margaret always said I was better company than I gave myself credit for. The next morning, I found a small bouquet of roses from his garden on my doorstep with a note, "For when your mom gets home." Harold. That was 6 months ago. Now Harold and I have coffee together most Sunday mornings. He's taught me how to change my car's oil, and I help him with his computer when he wants to video call his sister in Oregon. We watch baseball games together, and he's even started smiling and waving at the neighborhood kids instead of just tolerating them. Last week, when Harold mentioned that Margaret's roses were the highlight of their year together, I surprised him by suggesting we plant a memorial garden in the corner of his yard. His eyes lit up in a way I'd never seen before. "She would have loved that," he said softly. "And she would have loved you too. Sometimes the people we think we know the least turn out to be exactly the people we need most." Harold didn't just drive me to see my mom that day. He drove me toward a friendship I never knew I was missing. And the roses we planted, they're already starting to bloom.